Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking sports locally and nationally. Join the conversation on our social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go.
Instead of looking deep inside, every word I have to say, keep it simple.
Welcome back for another edition of the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. What's going on, everybody? My name is Ken. I'm the host of the ODPH, and also joining me in studio, as always, staying socially distant, is the one and only Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
We have some stuff to discuss in the land of sports, so let's join in that conversation, shall we? Hit us up on our social media accounts. You can find them all on OchoDuroParlayHour.com and use the hashtag ODPH to join in the conversation, because we definitely want to interact with you. We are hoping everybody is staying safe, staying healthy, and staying home, and just trying to ride through this entire C-19 era out until we flatten the curve and get back to normalcy. But we just hope everybody's spirits are very strong, and we have some stuff to talk about this week, don't we, Pat?
Yeah, we do.
So kicking off the show this week, let us follow up of a story that we covered last week, and that was UFC 249 on Fantasy Island or
Fighter Island
or Mortal Kombat, however you want to define it.
Shout out to whoever online, because I saw it shared plenty of times, but I don't know who originated it. Shout out to whoever took the Fighter Island, Mortal Kombat Island idea and ran with it to the point they made a music festival like poster for 3 days in the fights that it looked like a genuine music festival poster if you've ever seen one where the really big name acts are in really big font, and then you get to the end of the day and it's the smaller name acts are a little smaller font with every fighter known to God and man. It was hilarious.
How the internet ran with this, bravo.
Because, well, let's face it, the internet's got a lot of time on its hands these days.
They got a lot of time, but this was definitely entertaining to see, because the entire idea that...
It was ludicrous.
Yeah, the UFC was going to try attempting to fly in fighters from around the world.
This is like some Hunger Games type stuff.
Yeah, it was Mortal Kombat brought to life.
Yeah.
That we were going to just have the fights at a mysterious island that was never really announced where.
If it ever happens on this island, can we get the guy who actually voices the announcer from Mortal Kombat to do Fighter Island?
Yes, that needs to happen.
I don't know if the gentleman is still alive. I hope he is, but can we get him to do that?
Oh my god, that so needs to happen, because when this was originally taking place, the fights were supposed to be going on, and UFC 249 was supposed to still be a go, albeit with a little shifting in the cards, with Justin Gaethje jumping in the main event slot to fight Tony Ferguson for the interim lightweight title.
Rose Namajunas dropped out.
Yes, a lot of stuff has happened, and as you're touching upon, Rose has dropped out due to
family issues.
Right. So, lo and behold, since our last episode, the official word came down. UFC 249 has been canceled.
Although not by Dana White's own decision.
Break it down, Pat.
Yeah, so the news came down on April 9th via an interview that UFC would not proceed on April 18th due to despite UFC President Dana White's efforts to move forward with the pay-per-view event, trying to move heaven, hell, and earth all at once through his own means to make it happen. He also went on to say all other UFC events have been postponed indefinitely due to the pandemic, saying, quote, "Today we got a call from the highest level you can go at Disney and the highest level at ESPN. And the powers that be there asked me to stand down and not do this event next Saturday," close quote.
Thoughts on that?
I'm very surprised it happened. I'm a little surprised that, the head of Disney, which at this point, if we're going to cross over shows here a little bit, as I was reading the other day, Bob Iger, who was taking a step back and letting the new gentleman, I forget his name, who was head of the parks and supposed to be taking over for Iger in the meantime, in between time, Iger has stepped back in during the all the craziness going on and all the tumultuous things that are going on with the Disney company itself, not just the movies and the parks, but Iger has stepped back in. So I'm willing to bet this came from Bob Iger himself. I'm very surprised by that. And then also, not as surprised that James, I had to Google it, James Pitaro, who is the president of ESPN. So not so surprised he stepped in, just because if that fight went through and they carried it on ESPN, there'd be a lot of backlash for ESPN itself.
Bravo to Bob Iger and everybody involved.
If Bob Iger was the one making the call, I'm presuming he was.
I'm presuming it was too, because the idea of having this, sure, it's great on paper if there wasn't a pandemic going on.
If there's not a pandemic, this is a wild idea that I'd be all for.
Hell yeah, but you can't do it in this time period. You just can't.
God, no.
You have to be so specific in how you are flying in fighters, and the safety and health of the people you are bringing into that island should be number one. The fact that Disney stepped in and said, no way, cancel the fight is brilliant, and I applaud it. It is the right call.
Yeah.
Trust me, I want to see fights more than anybody.
I want to see anything real sports, period, as much as anybody.
Exactly. But to do it at the risk of human safety and flying in multiple people, whether they're fighters, whether they're medical staff, whether it's announcers, however many people you're bringing in, because we never got a full tally of what that was supposed to be.
This fight was supposed to take place, I realized it was canceled a week ago, but we were like 2 weeks out from this thing, and we still didn't know the full details of this. Like, okay, it's taking place on an island. Where? How is this going to work? Who's sanctioning the fight? Is anyone recognizing the fight? Or who's going to be the refs? Or, just the logistics of this made no sense. And we didn't know. And to be honest, I'm not sure UFC knew.
No, I think this was kind of a paint by numbers as they were going.
They were flying by the seat of their pants.
Well, I understand that they want to get everything back up and running. And it is their prerogative to feel that way.
Sure.
I'm not questioning that, because especially looking at the response on social media about this, people were losing their mind that they were getting fights again. And there was only a small amount of people, including us, that were saying this is a bad idea at this time.
Yeah.
So I understand the audience is there and everybody wants to get back to some kind of normalcy right now. I fully get that.
Yeah.
But to do it at the expense of just making it happen and building a makeshift arena to do this in and hoping everything works out.
Right.
You need to be better planned about this. And from all the information I have read, they were not ready to go.
This is something that needs, I would say, maybe at minimum a year's worth of planning. That to build everything, set everything up, get all the moving pieces in place, the medical staff and the facilities and the this and the that. You need at least a year, if not two, to get this fully set up and going. This is not something you can pull off. This isn't college where you're pulling an all-nighter to write a paper and you can pull it off. You can't do this in like 3 weeks.
No, you shouldn't do it in that short amount of time. I don't know if you could do it quicker in a year, like maybe in a few months, like maybe 4 or 5, depending on what you're trying to do with this place.
Yeah.
Like if you're building, for example, and I know we're kind of crossing genres here a little bit. It's like when AEW was building that outdoor arena,
right,
for their pay-per-view show. If you could do that in a short amount of time per se, but to have a medical staff ready because you're on a secluded island.
Right, a medical staff where there's cases of this pandemic in every state in the United States. Yeah. Like, doctors are needed. There is not time or people available that aren't really doing anything right now. Oh yeah, I got time to fly to an island.
Yeah, that's the thing. With whatever is going on right now, where you're trying to pull medical staff away from where they're helping people right now, that's a very selfish thing to do. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, if you were going to try doing this, for example, and I'm just going to throw a date out there. If you were going to try doing this in August, let's say the sanctions about shutdowns are not lifted by then. Is now April. So we're talking May, June, July, August. So that's 4 months. If you set up something in place where if you were still going to build Fighter Island or whatever you want to call it, and you were going to have a medical staff quarantined that you were going to have personally there for that fight,
right?
Then you were going to have fighters secluded and quarantined. So thus you're doing it like the WWE is doing, which we'll touch upon a little later in the show. Then I could be more comfortable with this.
Right.
But to makeshift this and just say, all right, we're going to just fly everybody in and around. And if that wasn't the case, then the image that was getting sent out was not clearing this up for the UFC.
And what wasn't helping the UFC is how mysterious and secluded all of these details were, because as fluid as everything is in the world and how crazy everything is in the world, this isn't something that you can just kind of like wait for the dirt sheets to get and wait for the Ariel Helwanis and the Brett Okamotos or the other writing community to get out. You need to be crystal clear with what's going on here, because if you're not, you're going to draw criticism, warranted or not, on your organization that may be founded or not. That, okay, let's just say, for using your example, August, everything gets lowered and they still want to go through with this. You got enough time between now and then to come up with a plan, come up with what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and you have to be 110% crystal clear about how you're doing things, because how you were doing things before with this island was not good. It was not a good look. Oh, hey, I bought an island. We're going to house fights. Oh, okay, cool. You got the infrastructure? Oh, it's being built. Okay, well, what about medical staff? Doctors are kind of hard to come by these days. What are you going to do for that? What are you going to do? You're only supposed to have no more than 10 people in a gathering together. Like, how are you going to do that? You got to be crystal clear with how this is going to work.
And that's the problem, that we just didn't have enough information for that. However, though, I know the UFC is still working on building the place up. Mm-hmm. And I believe, if I'm reading correct from ESPN, is going to be outside of Fresno in California. But then again, the California State Athletic Commission has suspended all combat sports through the end of May. So I don't exactly know how they're going to get around this if this was the place, because it was never really kind of crystal clear what's going on there. And with this being said, the UFC should just kind of take the pause right now and kind of think, okay, what's the next move going to be? Mm-hmm. Because obviously this card is off, and it's the right call to make. The next big card that was supposed to happen was going to be on May 9th, and I believe that's UFC 250.
Okay.
And that was supposed to be the fight between Henry Cejudo, the bantamweight champion, and it was going to now be taking place against Dominic Cruz, who was going to come in and fill in for Jose Aldo, who was going to has the same travel restrictions that Habib does.
Right.
So he wasn't going to be able to make the fight. So this is where it's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens, because I know that, as we're reporting to on ESPN, that the Cejudo is still in camp ready for a fight, but just kind of waiting to see what happens.
Right.
But you're still in the same boat that you've been in before. How are you going to do this with a pandemic going on?
Right, because even you bring up, okay, we finally found out one of the areas they were looking at. They were looking at the Tai Chi Palace Casino Resort in Lenmore, California, which is near Fresno. And obviously, as Ken mentioned, the California State Athletic Commission had canceled all combat events through May 31st.
Yeah.
But the hitch with this was that, the casino resort is located on Native American tribal land, and the ban does not apply. So, and the casino also didn't have to follow any executive stay-at-home order by the state. So, hey, there's a loophole. But, okay, here's the issue you run into. California State Athletic Commission says, hey, no combat sports through May 31st. You hold this fight, California ain't going to recognize it. So you just paid these fighters to fight for nothing? Like, the record ain't going to count? Any title changes aren't going to count?
Yeah.
You're going to run into all sorts of issues.
And essentially, you're having your fighters risk losing their fighter's license, because if California wants to come down on them, and you're going to have an unsanctioned event.
You got an unsanctioned event at a time where they're saying no combat sports through the end of May. April 18th, and you're going, let's have a fight.
Yeah.
And you just lost how many licenses for fighters?
Like, the ramifications about this, would be far more damaging than to actually pull off the fight. You can say a loophole, but let's face it, if you just try being that person to say, oh, I found a waiver, I can get away with this, karma comes back to haunt you in the worst way possible.
This is an instance you need to be thinking 4 steps ahead of where you currently are. You can't just be thinking about the here and now and what's going to, the almighty dollar. You got to be thinking about everything.
Yeah.
And I don't think they were.
No, I don't think. I think they were thinking, okay, if we can control our own destiny, so to speak, and have our own rules to do this in, then maybe we can swing it. I just think, in my humble ODPH opinion, this is the wrong time to just throw it against the wall and hope you find something that sticks. Because anytime that you don't go in fully thinking about everybody you're bringing into this camp and how you need to make sure at this time that you're keeping everybody healthy and adhering to the guidelines that are given. To try rushing a fight in like this and just really make something happen, I understand what they're doing, and in certain respects, I think their heart's in the right place, but we have to think otherwise. And if you don't think otherwise, this is where the problems start adding up, because it just takes one fighter or somebody in their camp to get sick, and then you're at fault. I mean, let's face it. I understand that you want to say the show must go on mentality is a good thing, and in certain aspects it is, but we are in different rules right now with the pandemic. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there, and I don't know if they're going to be able to pull off something by May 9th in another state.
I don't think so.
I don't think they should.
No.
So, Pad, this is where I'm going to kind of ask you. If you are Dana White and the UFC, what do you think your next move should be right now that everything is shut down until further notice?
I think you take a step back. You don't hold any events like you've already announced. You wait. I think you should follow in baseball's example and work with the proper, government, organizations, and there were other world organizations to figure out, okay, how do we go about coming back to this? When would be the right time? You work with them and you get a plan set in place. And then I would come back with the most stacked card of all time. You've now not had fights for a month now as we sit here recording. You are looking at, at least, all fights are postponed for the foreseeable future. You're looking at the next couple of months without any fights. You're going to have a lot of top tier fighters who are in fighting form, ready to go. I think you come back and you make it up to the fans and say, hey, we know you missed us. Let's do you a solid and stack that card head to toe. 3 title fights, 4 title fights, whatever the heck it takes.
What I think they should do is hold off and shoot for International Fight Week. And what I'm going to say is this. We're going to be talking July 4th week. Rough shot. I don't have a calendar in front of me, so I'm not looking. But whenever the fight week is going to be for that time period, I would do back-to-back nights, Friday and Saturday.
Sure.
And I would be exactly like you said. Stack that card into nobody's business. That is July 4th weekend, now that I've got a calendar in front of me. You do fights on the 3rd and 4th, or you do it on the 10th and 11th, whatever the case is. And you stack those like nobody's business. In fact, I'll even give you your main events. Mm-hmm. Night 1, lightweight title, Khabib versus Ferguson.
Sure.
Co-main, you can do Usman versus Masvidal.
Okay.
Next night, you can do headline McGregor Diaz 3.
Mm-hmm.
And co-main John Bones Jones versus Dominic Reyes.
Okay.
And you can stack the bottoms however you want for that cards. If you even want to wait for the Cejudo fight, you can put Cejudo versus Cruz on one of those nights too.
Yeah.
You have some wiggle room to do this. And I think that that'd be the smart play. And if you even want to raise the price of pay-per-view for those events, so let's say we pay right now about $65 for pay-per-view, but we also have a watch party that helps offset that cost. Mm-hmm. I have no issue if you bump that up to $100 a night.
No.
If you stack that card like you do, like UFC 100 or 200,
yeah.
You do the big ones that have been the legendary cards. Stack that up. People will not have a problem paying for that. In fact, you might have even the highest buy rate you've had since Brock Lesnar used to fight for you.
Yeah. I'd say that's a safe bet if you do that.
Yeah, because you don't need to do a Hall of Fame ceremony the night before.
No.
You don't have a Hall of Fame.
No.
It's like the WWE. Sure, I mean, the recognition.
The Hall of Fame exists, but it's not like you can go visit it.
Exactly. Until they have that built up in Vegas,
don't care.
Yeah, I don't really care. In fact, if you want to do that Sunday on the way home. Like, do that as a nice way to unwind and just appreciate what you got with the Ultimate Fight Week. So if you do that, that would make a ton more sense. And then if you're serious about doing this island, because I thought about this, Lord help me, I don't know why this idea popped in, but I'm now fully convinced on this. You really want to do Mortal Kombat on that island? Take it back to UFC 1 rules. Pat, do you know what those are?
Basically lawless, from what I've read.
Yeah, no weight classes. You do a 8-man tournament.
Oh, my Lord.
And what fighting style wins at the end of the night? You go full Mortal Kombat with that.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
You bring it back to the day ones.
Alistair Overeem versus Jose Aldo, please.
I'm telling you, you can get away with this. And people will watch. I will watch. Because if you want to really throw it back, if you are that hard up to do Mortal Kombat on a private island, this is the way to do it.
I'm thinking of some matchups in my head, and we might actually have a Mortal Kombat fatality. Good Lord.
I'm just saying, I mean, this is what you used to do with the UFC way back when it just used to be like the different fighting styles. This is why you had Gracie's running through crazy.
They do that. They might have to toss out like every top 5 knockout video they've ever done, because that would just basically top everything.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm sure that they wouldn't let like the flyweights fight the heavyweights.
Well,
but I think in certain aspects, you would definitely have a good mix of fighters in there and just let them go crazy. And it would be something for the fans. Sure, I'm not saying do this as a regular thing. This is
God, no.
This is just something that if you're serious about doing the Mortal Kombat, which I mean, if they still want to do the island after this is all said and done, more power to you. I'm not saying it is the bad idea if we're not living in a pandemic area.
Yeah.
But you have to think about that, and there has to be steps involved. You have to work with the athletic commissions. If they're willing to say, okay, if we fly in on a quarantined jet, X amount of fighters, X amount of teams, they're secluded in a hotel, they're kept away from the public, they just are training, that's all they're doing, and then you have a fight in an empty arena while this is going on, then fine.
Mm-hmm.
But to just have everybody come in at once and do that, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I think that would be the smart move for the UFC to do. I know, thinking if we can get fights up and running sooner, sure, more power to it. But we have to realize the era we live in.
Right, and I know every sport wants to be, remembered as the first one to come back since the pandemic started, and get that, little pat in the back, which is fine and all, but you got to do it sensibly. And you can't do it too soon. You can't do it before everything, it's safe to do so because you're going to be putting people at risk when you really shouldn't have been.
Exactly. The whole thing is we all want to get back to normalcy. Sure. Fully on board with that. We have to be smart about this. This is why we're supposed to be adhering to the crowd gathering amounts. This is why we're supposed to be adhering to social distancing. We're supposed to be adhering to everything the CDC and the WHO is saying. If it's not coming from them, you shouldn't be paying attention, in my opinion. As long as we're doing that, we can get through the C-19 era very quickly and get back to normal. Everybody's got to play their part, and everybody's got to do the right thing about that. If we're doing that, great, and then we can get there. The UFC needs to follow suit with that. And then if they want to take the time off to do this, this is where you plan it out. And that's what I would do. I challenge them to do this. Friday and Saturday night of International Fight Week. Stack that card up. Everybody should be cleared by then. Make the cards how you want to. You can raise the price up to $100 a night. Trust me, the audience will be there, and you'll have your biggest buy rates in history.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you want to do Mortal Kombat after, take it back to UFC 1, let it go. Let it happen. I'm all for it. But let us know what you think. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. What is your thoughts about the cancellation of Fight Island for UFC 249, and what do you think the UFC's next move should be? We definitely want to have that conversation. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Can you imagine a world immune to all forms of cancer?
Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come for our 4th annual live stream for the cure.
And this year, we need your help more than ever.
Please join us May 27th through May 31st for 48 hours of live content from guests and podcasts around the world.
We'll be aiming for our most ambitious goal to date as we try to raise $10,000 for the Cancer Research Institute.
Please visit www.livestreamforthecure.com for more information on this year's event and how you can be a part of it. Together, we can make a difference.
It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward, no steps back.
Hey, this is Vince the Common Man Ciatoy, local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast.
We knew right where we'd be, floating on the airwaves you see. It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward and no steps back. We knew right where we'd be.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and there's been a little wrestling news that definitely caught my attention, Pad's attention, 3FN's attention, and that is the WWE has been deemed an essential business.
Well, and it was even before that. They announced they were coming back for live television. The announcement hadn't been made that they were deemed an essential business, and everyone, the collective internet's reaction was, wait, what?
Yeah, this was definitely surprising because we kept hearing they were coming back for live showing, and it was going, how are we doing this? Because
Right.
they have already taped footage, we thought at least, through the month of April going into May. But apparently, I don't know what the status is with that. Just all we know is there was a memo that came out from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' office that explained that there has been additions to the list of essential services in the state of Florida, including, and I quote, employees at a professional sports and media production with a national audience, including any athletes, entertainers, production team, executive team, media team, and any other others necessary to facilitate, including services supporting such productions, only if the location is closed to the general public, quote unquote, and that is from ESPN.com.
They'll say, dear MLB, NHL, NBA, NFL, and every other sport, move to Florida. You can operate.
This is a domino effect, and this is a game changer on many proportions. So, Pad, let me ask you this. Your thoughts on this?
Stupid. Just dumb. Like, I don't understand it. I don't get the logic or reasoning behind it. Like, okay, they're an essential business. It's not like you didn't really detail why. Like, I just don't understand it.
I am with you on that aspect. The only thing I don't understand it, I guess, is where I'm going with this, is that I can only think that they have a great working relationship with the state of Florida. That is the WWE. And I think that what they've been doing is probably showcasing how they have been very proactive about performing during this time, and how they've been really making a point to be quarantined from the public and going above and beyond the call during this time to adhere to the rules given, and making sure that their people that are working at said events are in the safest places possible during this. Mm-hmm. Not saying it's right or wrong, but it is that's kind of my takeaway from that they've said, okay, this is what we've done. Could we still run? And obviously they have a great working relationship going on. Obviously with the Performance Center being in Florida, that maybe that Florida was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. So that being said, is business as usual for the WWE. Mm-hmm. Now, they do have their own facilities, so like I say, they have a very controlled environment. So I guess I could understand it, but I'm with you on this. It's a very slippery slope to walk.
So you want to talk about pulling the trigger and what happens if you bring it back too soon? I think this is going to be a clear case example.
Well, they already had one employee that tested positive for C19 after their tapings were done for WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. So that person was away from the event. We don't know who that is, but they're now coming back to the Performance Center wherever the tapings were. So that has been the only isolated event that an employee had caught it, but it was after tapings. Mm-hmm. But you are right. I mean, this is going to be something that if one person gets sick with the virus down there, they have to shut down immediately. Mm-hmm. So Vince is walking a fine line with this.
Yeah.
It's a questionable thing you can go back and forth about, too. I know on the next 3FNW show, Rich and I kind of deep dive into this a little more, so definitely chat over to 3 Fat Nerds Podcast Network when that episode drops, and you can kind of hear our takes about it a little more in depth. But for this, the show is going on in front of the live audience, and could another sports organization take up shop? We know Major League Baseball is still looking at Arizona, and at last I knew that was still on the table.
From what I've read, there hasn't been much in movement either forwards or backwards on that plan.
Okay. But to see how this goes, I think could be a benchmark setting for other sports organizations. I don't know how soon fights would get up and running, like, for example, for the UFC, or how much professional sports can you move to Florida? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that's going to be the precedent that is going to be made.
Well, I mean, arguably you can take the MLB Arizona plan and just move it to Florida.
Right.
Because, okay, Arizona, you have one Major League Baseball stadium. Florida, you have two.
Right.
And you also have probably, without looking at the numbers in front of me, an equal number of spring training facilities and also minor league baseball facilities.
And college facilities,
College facilities and, local parks or whatever you have. So, like, in theory, with the baseball plan, you could just erase Arizona on the sheet of paper and rewrite Florida in it.
Well, I think it's going to be a wait-and-see aspect about this that I think all professional sports leagues are going to have to look at. If this is feasible, I'm sure you're going to see more people try doing this.
Well, yeah, they got to figure something out, because I was reading a story the other day that if part of the NFL season is canceled or like postponed, that a third of all cable subscribers would cut their cable. So like you've got that staring the NFL and cable companies in the face. Mm-hmm. You've already got the revenue lost from the lack of sports right now. I mean, I was reading an article from Hollywood Reporter the other day about other networks and how they're doing with all programming and everything shut down. The one that really made my jaw drop was NBC, and I completely forgot about this. NBC has to make up for 85 hours of lost Olympic coverage,
right?
Which is a nightmare. So it's something that everybody's got to figure out and get figured. And I think getting back to the WWE situation, there was stories going around and rumors going around. I think this, again, like with UFC, came down to the almighty dollar. That there were rumors and there were reports that, according to the television deals for both Raw and SmackDown, so USA Network, and because I think they're owned by Comcast, I could be wrong, and then Fox, that according to the deals, they can only do so many pre-taped shows a year, and that there are certain episodes that are earmarked for that. So Christmas, the European stuff. And after that, it's kind of like snow days when you're in school. Like, okay, you got a certain number, you got to be at school 180 days out of the year in the United States. And they've got X number, I don't know how many it is offhand, earmarked as like, okay, if there's, bad weather or something going on where like we can't safely get the students to school, day off. Similar type situation. That it sounds almost like, WWE was running out of snow days and that they were worried about, the networks coming back and changing the deals and or withholding money.
It could be the case. I mean, there's one fine line you walk when sports become a business. Then you take away from the athletics and you start thinking about the financial aspects. This happens anytime you hear professional next to a sports athlete. So for the WWE, that would probably make sense, and especially coming off the heels of what's going on with the XFL. I know we're talking apples and oranges, but with the XFL closing up shop and filing for bankruptcy.
That doesn't surprise me.
Well, no, that doesn't surprise me either.
Doesn't surprise me just because I can't remember if I said it on air, but I'm pretty sure off air at least. I remember saying to you guys and reading that like they were operating at a loss, a loss of money, and they were going to be operating at a loss for at least 2 or 3 years. So they were already kind of like not backs against the wall, but like they were getting backed into a corner.
They were in a bad position.
They were in a bad position. They weren't backed into a corner, but like they're kind of approaching a corner. This whole situation just didn't help them.
No, that sunk their battleship.
Oh,
Like it was arguable if they were going to go for another season. I thought they might be able to stretch it out for one more.
Yeah, I think they might have gone for another season, but maybe shortened.
Yeah, they were going to definitely not. In my opinion, they weren't going to go past 2.
No.
I was very surprised because as we were covering on the show before everything got shut down, the only sports highlights we were talking about is the quarterbacks fighting on the sidelines. That's not the best look for your sports league.
No.
So the XFL was already in trouble, and with Vince behind it.
Happy side note, some of the players are getting signed to NFL teams.
Yeah, so I mean,
Good for them.
There is some upside to it. But for Vince, and obviously when one door shuts, he's got to focus on the main house. And focusing on getting the WWE back up and running. That's what he's trying to do. And with what's going on right now, this is going to be something that we're going to have to watch very intently.
Right, and they're getting a lot of their plans for the next couple months, hell, even next year thrown into the air. Because the article I was reading yesterday or day before, I forget when, was that, until things go back to normal, we will not see Brock Lesnar on any form of WWE, anything, because, well, he's a prize fighter, he's a money fighter, he likes to fight in front of crowds, he doesn't like to fight in front of empty buildings. And the other one is we may not see Roman back for a few months with everything going on, which makes sense and I understand, but so you've got, wrestling fans know how meticulous they are and how far out they've got things planned that, you're airing WrestleMania and they've already got, next year's WrestleMania's plans, penciled in. They're not inked and the ink's not dry, but like they're already figuring out what they're going to do for next year. This is screwing up everything for them for the next, 6 months.
Oh, it definitely is. And they're going to just have to adapt on the fly. Like we were talking about, throwing something against the wall and hoping it sticks for the UFC. The WWE has to do it a little differently because they're going to have to deal with fighters wrestlers not being down at the performance center for whatever reason.
Yeah.
That we don't know what the future is going to hold, and they just have to work with what they have right now.
And I'll say this. I know Braun wasn't their first choice to win Universal Championship. We all know that was supposed to be Roman, but circumstances what they are, Braun's Universal Championship. I love the idea of Braun facing Bray.
Oh, yeah.
That's a genius idea that I don't think... They've had confrontations, and they've kind of, like, seen each other and maybe said some words to each other, but they've never, like, actually... gone against each other since they split.
No, and it's definitely something that now they're making the positive out of a negative. With different storylines they can do, such as Bray versus Braun, which if you've been following WWE for many years, that's how Braun came into the WWE.
No, don't forget. Braun was a Rosebud before he was a Wyatt.
I try blocking that out as much as possible.
Braun was a Rosebud. Google it.
Yes, no, but you're exactly right. So, but since Braun has become Braun, it's a whole different thing. And now that we have obviously different moving parts going on, you're seeing other wrestlers starting to shine. I don't think any bigger right now than Austin Theory.
No, holy cow.
If you
strap a rocket to that kid.
If you're talking about somebody that took advantage of a bad situation and ran with it.
Yep.
If you've ever heard us talk on the show here or even on 3FN, we have said this kid is going to be the next big thing. And he is definitely running with the ball. That they're pairing him with Selena Vega, who is now turning into a major faction going on with Garza and Andrade, and then there could be one more added to it. We don't know.
Let's see, I did see people throwing out Shield 2.0 question mark.
I'd be okay with that. I think that there's a lot of potential for it, and plus you have I don't want to say it's like the NWO because I think that could be too strong, or the Shield.
No.
But when you have 3 up-and-coming stars, and let's face it, I know Andrade's been around for a while, but he's really just started to pick up steam as of late. since his NXT run. This is where you can kind of see how these could be your next cornerstones when we talk about Roman, Seth, and Dean. Why not Austin, Andrade, and Angel?
Yeah.
That you can see this happening, and that they're going to have to take the time to run, because now they're going to be looked upon and being the major superstars going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously going into Money in the Bank season, because we know that that's going to be the WWE's next big pay-per-view in May.
Right.
They're going to start lining up their domino effects, because they need to really get the ball rolling on what their future plans are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's going to be, May 17th, I think?
Something like that, yeah.
For the card. They already started having prelim matches on Raw for their men's and women's match, respectively, which, once again, you're having... Asuka is looking like she's starting to get a big push with that, so she'll be involved with that. So
Money in the Bank is May 10th.
Oh, May 10th, okay. I couldn't remember. I knew it was in May, but...
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to start having some of that, and obviously with what's going on with Shayna Baszler,
right,
is she did win her match, albeit though the wrong announcement did not help matters. They were not having a good production night, in my opinion, on Raw last night as we're recording. Very bad all around.
Oh, you got to get the wheels turning again.
Well, I know they're going.
Been off for a few weeks.
Yeah, but it was definitely an off night, and you could definitely show, because when they announced the wrong winner of the match.
Yeah.
And I almost was wondering if this has something to do with Ronda Rousey's recent comments, which I'll close this segment out with those when we get to it. But to see that Shayna got her big win, and then, like I said, Theory had a good chance to show on his match, and you just started seeing that they're really starting to get behind the Vega Incorporated faction, which was really good to see, and how they closed the show, too, with Drew looking strong against Andrade, and now setting up for the feud against the one and only Monday Night Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on that, Pat?
Should be interesting. Rollins really hasn't chased, a main title belt in a while. So, I'm all for it. And it'll be interesting if he wins, eventually win, because I can't imagine, first title defense, Drew will drop it. But if and when Rollins wins it, it'll be really interesting to see where he goes, because he's great as a heel. Mm-hmm. But this character is so different from his last heel persona that it'll be very interesting to see what they do with it.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see where they go with it, and especially for McIntyre. He's got to get a good run, and he's unfortunate that he doesn't have live crowds to work in front of now to really hear how he would do in front of them.
No, because that interaction he had with Andrade last night would have been awesome with a crowd.
Oh, absolutely. And I do like that they touched upon their NXT feud.
Oh, yeah. They don't normally do that.
They don't usually go dipping in the crates about that, but that was kind of interesting to see them pull off. So I was excited to see where it goes, and I know a lot of it was getting overshadowed this week with Ronda Rousey's comments.
Yeah.
Now, she had a couple choice things to say about that she didn't like working in front of the quote-unquote fake fans, and just did not have a lot of nice things to say about her coming back, and she was kind of saying that she just wants to do part-time. So, Pad, let me ask you this. What is your overall take on Ronda's comments?
I understand where she's coming from. She could have worded it better. I understand that when she came in, she expected, glowing praise and fan adulation, because by and large, that's what she got when she was in UFC and in the mixed martial arts world. Okay, she didn't come into instant, love and praise, but it built up. But when she left UFC, everybody loved her. She was the darling. She was on all the interview shows and all the morning shows. And I think she might have expected some of that to translate over, because there is some overlap between, MMA fans and professional wrestling fans.
Sure.
But it's still a Venn diagram. There's still that middle part of the two circles, but then there's also the other parts of the circles that, they don't overlap. You've got MMA fans that aren't wrestling fans, and you've got wrestling fans that aren't MMA fans. And I'm sure there was a fair number of them who did not care who she was or the name where it's like, oh, hey, cool, Ronda Rousey's here. What's she got? Oh, she's a terrible wrestler. Boo. As a wrestler, you got to kind of let some of that bounce off of you. John Cena's been hearing it for 10, 15 years. He feeds off of that. That being said, I kind of hope she comes back, because, I also fear for her a little bit, because whoever they pair her with, they're going to work her real stiff for about half of their match.
I have my thoughts about this. One, I think that was a total work by her. I think that maybe she started out shooting, and if you know anything about when she's done interviews in the past, take a look at when she was a coach on The Ultimate Fighter, and she came off very bad in certain aspects in front of the camera, and it just goes to show, she's just got a different personality that I don't think translates well for that part of the camera, like when she's being very honest, that it doesn't come off as cordial, I guess would be the way to put it. And it's not exactly the most positive light when you're supposed to be working on building a fan base and you're complaining about fans not liking you. Well, if you're complaining they don't like you, wrestling fans typically like to troll when they can do that.
Yeah.
So I think that they're really going to have a feast on this one.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that she didn't do any favors, and I think that certain wrestlers such as Nia Jax and Alexa Bliss had a few things to say about this. And mark my words, I think that the WWE is now fully spinning this into a work, and I think that you're going to see the first match back for Ronda is going to be Nia.
Oh, yeah, Nia's going to work her real stuff.
And, yeah, I don't expect that is going to have any pulled punches in certain degrees. I think that some shots are going to be given. How Ronda reacts to that is going to be anybody's guess. I don't know where that's going to go. I couldn't give you a timetable, but I think that the amount of wrestlers that are chiming in about Ronda's comments tend to make me think that we might see an appearance sooner than later. I got a feeling possibly at Money in the Bank. Maybe not involved in the match per se, but not saying it's completely out of the realm of thought.
I'd say maybe SummerSlam.
SummerSlam would be the smarter bet because I think that they're going to have Nia versus Ronda, and I think you have Shayna versus Becky.
Yeah.
In the rematch, and I think that makes a lot of sense to do. And I think they can ultimately set up Shayna versus Ronda however they want to spin that. But for Ronda to come back and take a little shot at the fans, I just think it's one of those situations where if you know you're returning, don't bite the hand that's feeding you.
Yep.
Because those fans are going to completely go at you.
Also, don't bite, the proverbial hand of the person or people who have to safely perform a move on you and not get you injured. They're like, you have to put your trust in them to not injure you. Now, I'm not saying any of these wrestlers would deliberately injure her, but they're going to hit you a little hard.
Let's just say this. Nia accidentally hit Becky and broke her nose.
Yeah.
Not saying Nia would be a little more incentive-laced to do something. But
there'll be a few punches she doesn't hold back.
But if there's a punch she doesn't hold back, how is Ronda going to react? And if Ronda goes full UFC mode, which she is more than capable of doing...
Oh, that's a switch she can turn on.
How is this all going to play out? This is where it's going to be a fine line to walk. A lot of fine lines this week in the land of sports. But this is where the WWE is going to really have to monitor that situation should they bring her back. Then who knows? It could be a situation where Ronda does crash Money in the Bank. We know she's due. When we've only had a few players get added to the table here. So more is going to be happening this week as we're progressing on through television. Friday Night SmackDown didn't really have a lot going on, so I don't really feel like covering too much on that. But where they go from here, other than building up for Braun and Bray, that was the only thing that was a highlight, which was done phenomenally.
Yeah.
Everything else is kind of a snooze fest. But where they go from here is going to be anybody's guess, since now they can go to live shows. I don't know what we can expect coming forward. All I know is that we got people getting ready for Money in the Bank, which is going to be a big pay-per-view. How the WWE wants to translate this and set the benchmark for every other sports organization right now is going to be a lot of pressure that they're going to need to handle. They can't afford to slip up. But let us know what you think. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. What is your thoughts about the WWE now being named an essential business? And what's your thought about the live shows coming back? We definitely want to have that interaction. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey all, I'm Frank. Join me and my friends as we talk about all things geek. Here at Geek Freaks Podcast, we go over the weekly news of everything in geekdom, from movies to TV, to video games, and comic books. We also have a growing YouTube community. Join us as we go over everything in your geek life and share in the love of geekdom.
Hey, this is Brian Wolf from Fair City Fire. You are listening to ODPH, the greatest podcast in Binghamton.
Woo!
Hot lips touching, cool thighs feeling, shot running up, her spine spinning, long day to a long night, but I'm not stopping till I get it right.
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. No local minute to report. Everything is still on shutdown, so the only thing we can do is stress. Please support local wherever you can.
Yeah.
That being said, one thing that we're going to really close out with, I know that Coach Duffy is sitting at home, and we give a shout-out to Coach right now, at Coach Duffy11 on Twitter if you want to hit him up, has had this date circled for a long time. And now we finally get to the dance on Sunday, Pat.
One shining... Oh, sorry, wrong dance.
Wrong dance on this one. No, we get the Michael Jordan and Chicago Bulls documentary, The Last Dance.
I feel like documentary isn't even the right term for this. I don't know what it is, but like doing a 10-part documentary, like especially on something like this large encompassing, documentary just doesn't feel like the right term.
No, it definitely doesn't. This has been, I don't want to say like a hidden gem, but I know it's been talked about for a long time. And then when we finally saw the trailer come out way back when, and we were all extremely excited to see what was going to happen with this, because we had long heard that there was footage about the 1997-1988 Bulls team, the last run that they'd had as the great championship team with Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman and company, that this was, like I say, almost unheard of that they had footage of everybody's point of view during this time.
All access.
All access, which was unheard of for this time period. So now we finally get this footage and is going to kick off on Sunday. The trailer, like we said, has looked phenomenal. And if you are a sports fan, which if you're listening to this show, I would assume you are. And if not, I am definitely telling you to check this out. Pat, how excited are you about this?
I'm very excited about this because I was aware of Michael Jordan. Obviously Space Jam had come out by then. So, he was very well known amongst, folks of my age and in my generation. But also, I kind of knew who the Bulls were just because I saw the logo and I saw people, the jacket was real popular back in the day, the starter jacket, and all that. But like, I didn't fully understand it and I never really saw him play just because I didn't really give a what about sports, for another 2 years or so after this, 1998 season. So I never really got to watch Jordan in his prime. So just to see, I've heard the stories and I've seen the video and I've seen the footage and I've seen the highlights and everything, but this is just something so unlike, I think, anything we've ever seen in terms of a sports documentary. And there's plenty of them out there. ESPN's done great with all their 30 for 30s. And if you have ESPN Plus, I highly recommend you go check a lot of them out. They're all great. The Dan Marino, John Elway one, about that draft class sticks out in my mind. But just this, it's just, an all access filming of that team and all its parts for a year, where that was when they were at their height of popularity and Rodman was doing the crazy stuff he was doing and Jordan was at his height of cool and Phil Jackson was the guy who could, put it all together.
To watch this growing up and seeing it from the outsider looking in, the Bulls were like your Patriots. That's probably the closest we've had to a dynasty.
Sure.
The Bulls at that time, and this is coming from a Knicks fan, mind you, were so dominant. It was always just scary to watch them play and just how much of a fine-oiled machine they were. That they could just go on the court and you knew that you needed them to have an off night to beat them because they had so much talent going on. Phil Jackson with the triangle offense and Scottie Pippen balancing out Dennis Rodman and Jordan and just the drama that was that team, which you never really saw that happen before because they were all so professional about it, but they were also going in and performing, and you're getting like I say, so much of the behind the scenes to see how a dynasty ticks. That's probably the most interesting thing to see that we will be able to finally see.
Well, and to go back to your point, you needed an off night to beat them. You needed more than an off night. You needed an off night of biblical proportions because let's not forget, Jordan played a game with the flu and still won.
Yeah.
So you needed something real crazy to happen to beat the Bulls.
Well, I've always said that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time.
Oh, yeah.
I'll stand by that. That is a different era, and for him to be as great as he was, that to set the benchmark, which more players have now followed him after, the late Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. I mean, the names go on and on about the great players. To see the benchmark that Jordan set, and the fact that Jordan had the original super team, albeit before there was a super team built.
Right.
To see that he made his fellow teammates better. And you can definitely tell when he left to go play baseball how much the Bulls dropped off. So him being on that court made those players that much better is truly a remarkable feat to see. And like I say, as a Knicks fan growing up, I hated seeing him. But it was a respect. It's like they had for the Patriots when Brady was there. This is a respect thing that, sure, you don't root for them, but just to bask in how well they play and how much they operate at such a high level and just really set the benchmark. It was always just phenomenal to see. And let alone now we get to see that final run.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is going to be something to watch and just see the breakdown. I believe they've interviewed over 100 people about this, too.
Wow.
That they have so many influences coming in around the league and just everybody who sat there and lived through it and get their perspective.
Yeah.
This is going to be a major event. And just, I mean, trying to break this down is just going to be absolutely crazy. I mean, this is like, I believe this... It just has so much that is just going to just captivate you as a sports fan, and really, it's going to make everybody really want to watch the NBA the minute this gets done.
And it's going to be interesting to see how they do this, because it's not like some documentaries where they're split into 3 parts and beginning, middle, and an end. You know, this is 10 parts, so like, and they're all, I believe, going to be 1 hour apiece, if not longer. So they're covering at minimum 10 hours worth of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just going to be interesting to see, well, you know, rumored stories that you might have heard about back in the day, like, oh, there was a rumor that, you know, this happened behind the scenes. You might find out about it. You know, it'll be, I wonder how this happened. There was a game they played against, you know, San Antonio where something seemed to be happening on the court, but I can't really be sure. You might find out about it. It'll just be interesting, like, especially with some of the players that were there and played against them. Just some of the stuff and the stories that we may not have heard before.
Yeah, this is just going to be absolutely mind-blowing. And to say this is going to be the last dance, the last time the Bulls were making the runs, this is just going to be absolutely wild to see. And like I said, growing up in the era where you saw Chicago win 2 separate three-peat titles.
Yeah.
And like I said, the only reason it wasn't more is because Jordan decided to go play baseball.
Yeah.
Which was absolutely crazy. And then when he came back, he came back with a vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
And just to see how just to see his impact on the game.
Yeah.
That there's never been anybody else like him. I think the closest was Kobe when Kobe was playing.
But that's the thing, is Kobe was great and Kobe was an amazing player, but I don't think we've seen a player on the same skill level like throughout his career. Just like every player, Kobe, LeBron, Steph, they've had ups and downs. They've had great years and they've had terrible years.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan, start to finish, might have been a little bit of a slow start, but everybody has that at the start of a season. Kobe had it, LeBron had it, Curry had it. You know, everybody's had it. But once you kind of hit that peak of your game, or you're at the top of your game, you really get going. You really got your handle on things. I don't think we've ever seen a player, I'll even say in any sport, have a sustained, successful run at dominance and just being great like Jordan.
No.
LeBron is good. LeBron is a game-changing player, and I would say LeBron is in the same vein as Jordan in terms of he makes players around him better. But LeBron has had his ups and downs. LeBron's had great years. He's had awful years. Jordan, start to finish, great years.
Jordan, when he was with Chicago. The Washington years, I don't count.
Those don't exist.
Those don't exist. So I just want to very much clarify that, because somebody goes,
this documentary not covering those years.
Exactly. But his run with Chicago and just the magic they made and how they transcended the NBA, where they turned it away from being just a sport to a global event.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to talk about the influence about how that translated overseas to how the European game has picked up and how, you know, the games over in the Far East have picked up, a lot of it has to do with the influence of Jordan. And
right,
just because that's when he was playing on the Olympic team.
Oh, yeah.
And when, you know, once that started going on and you started seeing the NBA players get over there,
that
you really showed how the game had transcended and gone there.
Well, and you especially look at the one game again in the Olympics, I forget what country it was, where him and Pippen shut the one other guy down that was supposed to be playing with the Bulls.
Oh, Tony Kukoc?
Yeah, when they shut down Kukoc. I think that for a lot of people around the world, like the United States, we already knew what they were. They're like, all right, they're about to manhandle this guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for fans around the world, that they knew who he was and they knew he was good. I think instances like that opened their eyes to like, holy crap.
Well, once the Dream Team came over there, I mean, and he was one of the top 3 people on that team. I mean, that whole team was so ridiculously stacked.
Oh, that was like what you do in a video game and you turn off like all the settings that would prevent you from doing that.
Yeah, I think that showed the world what Jordan was capable of. And just how him and Magic and Bird, and I mean, the list goes on and on about the team from 92, just to see how they impacted the world with the game. I mean, trying to put into words the impact that Jordan has had on a sport. He's a player that revolutionized it.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be very honest. I mean, everything from the sneakers, because, I mean, that's when Air Jordans really took off.
Yeah.
And you talk about, like, how sneakers became such a big part of the, the basketball culture, so to speak. And just to see how that's just exploded after him, and how he was once synonymous with Nike for all the years, and just really the first one to have that big superstar contract with a clothing brand. And just to see that he is just one of those great players that just makes a game better and makes everybody else raise their levels up to match him. I mean, just to see how this is going to get broken down from the behind the scenes. I'm super excited to see this. And like we say, this is going to kick off this Sunday on the 19th of April. And
Episodes 1 and 2.
yes, episodes 1 and 2. And if you are outside the U.S., I am reading that the series is going to be available on Netflix.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
so if you don't have the opportunity to watch ESPN for whatever reason, check Netflix wherever you're listening to us from, and definitely take a look at that series when it comes out. Because I'm telling you this right now, this is going to be the event for sports for a while that we are all going to be talking about. We might be doing a review about it, I would say next week, but that's going to be the NFL draft. Do you believe that snuck up on us?
Well, that's happening, and Roger Goodell's going to be announcing the first-round picks from his basement.
Right, which is the smart thing to do right now. And like I say, but between that and the NFL draft, this is going to be the biggest sports story going on right now, unless somehow, some way, an organization comes back.
No, I don't think that's happening.
I don't think that's happening next week.
No.
But for right now, set your DVRs, set your calendars, set your alarms, whatever you need to set. April 19th, this is going down on ESPN. The Last Dance, the story of the 97-98 Chicago Bulls. This is must-watch TV. I'm giving the highest possible recommendation for this. That being said, the music you heard on this episode is that of Fair City Fire. They're our friends in Austin, Texas. And shout out to Brian Wolf. He has some solo music coming out, too.
Yeah.
So he's been doing a little of that on Facebook. And we have so many friends of ours that are doing solo concerts on Facebook. Where do you find out about that? OchoDuroParlayHour.com, and head over to the music section. And Pat, I'll even throw this challenge out.
Okay.
We have been very fortunate to have a lot of great DJ battles on Instagram.
Yeah, we have.
RZA vs. DJ Premier. Enough said. But I'm going to throw this challenge out to our local friends of the show, our musician friends. Why don't we have them kind of do a little square off?
Okay.
That we can't get, let's say, Julian from Shout at the Robots go against Tyler from Second Suitor. 5 songs back to back to back to back. Just entertain the fans and definitely let the world hear the great music. I'll throw that challenge out. I'm going to throw that out to Walking Distance. I'll throw it out to Floodlands. I'll throw it out to Yard Party. I'll throw it out to Tom Jolu. I'll throw it out to everybody that's on the OchoDuroParlayHour.com music section. And let's see what you guys got. So also on the ODPH website, though, I do have to plug our ODPH directory. So we got to give a shout out to Tom from Off the Cuff Gaming, doing big things with Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah.
First episode was Straight Fire. Definitely was in that chat going on. The game looks amazing. Pat, have you played it yet?
I need to. I'm currently working on the second DLC for Borderlands 3, but as soon as that's done, I got to pick up Final Fantasy VII.
Definitely check out Tom's page because he is breaking that down when he's airing live. It is must-watch TV. Also have to give a shout-out to Johnny Moose and Excite Wrestling. They're still going strong with their Excite Classics channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I have to give a shout-out to all the groups that we are in. Shout-out to PodNation. Shout-out to the Legion Independent Podcast. Shout-out to the Apocalypse community. And, of course, shout-out to Hashtag 607 Podcast. Right now, if you go to the ODPH page and you go to the ODPH directory, you can click on any one of those groups. And the Podchaser list is up. And for every review that is left for a podcast, it doesn't have to be us. I mean, I do appreciate any 5-star reviews, so feel free to leave it for us.
They really help the show.
They do. They truly do. But for any podcast that is up there, you leave a review, Podchaser is donating 25 cents to Meals to Wheels, or Meals on Wheels. So if a podcast gets a review, like let's say you leave one for us, we will leave one back. Podchaser will also donate another 25 cents. So technically a review could be 50 cents, all going towards Meals on Wheels, going through April 16th.
Okay.
I have been leaving reviews left and right for a lot of our friends of our podcast, and I've been trying to go through all those lists. So if you want to leave a review up there, that is the place to do it. You just got to write a quick review. Great show. I mean, the instructions are on there for Podchaser. So just head over to podchaser.com, check out the reviews for good, hashtag. They'll give you all the information. Then just head over to the ODPH directory after that. Go find a podcast that you like listening to. Leave a review. They should be leaving you one back. I know I left one for Epic Film Guys. They hit me back today for a bunch of reviews I left. Super appreciative of those guys. Let's help out the communities where we can help out right now. And it's a great cause to do for a very, very little amount of effort to do. Leave a quick review. It helps. And speaking of Epic Film Guys, we have to say shout out to them. May 27th through the 31st, twitch.tv/Epic Film Guys, live stream for The Cure. It is officially announced the ODPH, Three Fat Nerds Podcast, and Tom from Off the Cuff Gaming are going to be teaming up to do an hour of content on live stream for The Cure. So we're super happy to help raise money for the Cancer Research Institute. $10,000 is the goal, and we're going to do our best to raise that money and help kick cancer's ass. So for more information on that, livestreamforthecure.com, or if you want to leave an early donation, the instructions are on there as well. The button, excuse me, man, I'm getting so hyped up, I'm running out of voice here, is right on the ODPH front page, so you can definitely click on that, get all the information you can. And we also have to give a shout out to our friends over at 8122productions.com. Shout out to Rich, Ron, and hashtag Big Natty Cool. Still on Twitter, Pad.
Oh, boy.
He's still on. He has not gotten kicked off. In fact, he's promising more Love is Scary.
Oh, God.
Oh, be ready, my friend. Be ready. And in fact, it got announced Ron is going to be doing I Love Movies on their Patreon channel as well. And I'm super excited to hear his movie reviews coming on. First one up is John Wick.
Oh, God.
Oh, yes. So if you've heard the 3FN show, which you should be listening to, Ron has a lot of feelings towards John Wick and the movie franchise. So you'll have to get behind a paywall to hear the true uncooked, uncut, unedited version. $1 gets you in the front door. $3 gets you a comfy seat at the table. All of that can be found on patreon.com/8122productions. So that being said, that is all I got for this week. So anything more, you can go over to ochodoroparlayhour.com and check out. So for the one and only Padawan J.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. See you next time.